John, let's just get through some of the nitty gritty that we need to. Public versus private and charging of guests for social events. Why do I have this down? Why is it important?
Well, so the purpose of your facilities is for the community, which is private. Now, if you want to open it to the outside to earn some money, and you think that's going to benefit the community, you know, that's at least a good argument you could make. But, you know, just backing up to your last question, like, yeah, if you're using community funds to pay for holiday parties that only 10 people attend, that could come off as being unfair, but it's the same. So I'm gonna compare it to a pool that only a handful of people use. So it's an amenity that's there for everyone. The party is available for everyone. There's a good purpose for doing it. It's to encourage community, but you know, and how you could, I think you could go either way, but you know, you're gonna charge people admission. I guess you could. It just seems like for community events, holiday events, it could be a common expense. You know, the whole issue of public and private, it gets into charging outsiders to rent out your clubhouse.
All right, so we're kind of getting all over the place. Dave, did you want to say something?
I'm putting my board member hat on because I live in a community that we do lots of social events, and we have a social event budget that goes towards putting these social events together. But then when we have specific events like a holiday party, we ask for those who are attending to contribute for that party. So it's like a per person fee in addition to the social event budget, because the social event budget just won't cover that. And it seems to work. And those
So John, that was one of the questions, John. This funding has to be defined in the budget, right? Somewhere, obviously.
Oh yeah, every expense should be in the budget. If you anticipate it, it should be in the budget.
Okay. And then going backwards, because the audience is also asking, my question was, we've spoken before many times about not making your private events public because it involves, you know, handicapped access. There's insurance issues that Greg has spoken about. Can an association charge non-owners to attend an event, or is that going to create issues? Or do they have to just charge owners? Can they charge non-owners to attend? Like if someone brings a guest, can a guest come of an owner, and who should pay for it?
Yeah. So to your point, you're a private community. It's a private amenity. By charging guests, you may lose the layer of protection, and really just not even protection, but you're opening yourself up to more liability if you start charging guests. Go ahead, Dave.
Can I just add something? Once you start inviting the public into a private community, the facilities have to then conform to specific requirements that they may not otherwise need to conform to if it's a private community.
Like Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yeah, exactly. Like simple things like curb ramps at streets have to be ADA compliant if you're now providing a facility for the public.
I guess what I'm getting at, John, is should an association only charge owners? So if an owner wants 5 tickets, they can buy 5 tickets. And if they want their grandchildren to come, they can invite their grandchildren. What I'm getting at, should an association get away from charging anybody but an owner for tickets to an event? That's what I'm kind of driving at.
Yes,
here.
I agree, because that's who you have your relationship with, the owner.
Right.
Agreed.
And Greg, I guess there's a technicality here, and I don't want to spend like an hour on it, but let's face it, social events, people are going to invite their grandchildren. They're going to invite their friends.
Correct. You want to avoid You want to avoid this becoming a public event where you're, advertising it on telephone poles for anyone to come that's unrelated to anything. Your suggestion here of, charging the unit owner for 5 tickets, obviously their good friend or their relatives, but there's going to be some very close connection to who's a unit owner there is going to keep you, I think John would say, closer to your private event for just the association and give you definitely another level of protection. And the insurance company's not going to want to see. It would change what they're expecting an association to do when they're insuring it if you're just doing complete public events.
So John, I kind of guess I want to get off this topic, and I feel kind of bad about it because I guess technically, theoretically, I guess if you have an event and owners bring guests, it could open up a can of worms. But I think it's one of these things where, what are you going to do, right? You're going to have a party and you're going to say you can't bring your grandchildren. Is that basically where we're leaving this? We've kind of expanded into a different direction here, but
yeah, I mean, just about every property has there's provisions that anticipate you're going to have guests. So I don't think you just have to, make it, if you're not on the deed, you don't come into the clubhouse. I think it goes without saying that guests are they're going to be there.
Right. But have the owners buy the tickets. Don't let
That's
the
right.
guests buy the tickets at the door. Correct?
Correct.
All right. Tyler, are you satisfied we got to everything from a manager's perspective in regard to that? So we can go on
Yeah.
or okay.
Absolutely.
This comes up a lot too. Can an association use their leftover funds? Like if they have leftover funds from their water basin project, can they decide to throw a party, John, or do they have to do something else?
Just account for it in the budget. Unless you specifically earmarked it for only one project and you told owners that you're going to give the money back to them, it's all part of the budget process. We had a surplus from this project and we're going to use it because in the end, almost all the funds are for common expenses. So as long as you could just show that it's still for a common expense, it should be fine.
So just make a note in the budget that it was moved, correct?
Oh yeah, definitely back it up with a budget and a reason.
All right. Expenses we already spoke about. I didn't go pay as you go. I think we already covered that. Dave said I think most places do a combination. Would you agree, Tyler? That there's a right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, I don't want to spend too much time on this because we've gone over this 1,000 times already. Greg, can you just talk a little bit about the importance of a committee and why it's important that it be a committee compared to just volunteers getting involved?
Sure. I mean, it's very good to have committees. You may have a social committee that's going to be in charge of putting on these events, get that work away from the boards, the actual board of directors that are involved in many, many other items. So they're just reporting to them with the details, the budget, and the specifics of that event, and it makes them very well organized. And from what I've seen on having committees, especially social committees, they've gone very well.
So John, basically, we've done this 1,000 times. The people that are involved in running the social event, you want them to be part of a board sanctioned committee so they're covered, correct?
That's correct. And remember, the committees are, they give advice to the board. They report to the board.
Okay. Sorry, audience. I know that you guys know a lot of this already, but I still have to go through it. It's painstaking. Sometimes it's painful, but we're almost done. And then we're going to actually talk about different kinds of social events is one reason why Tyler's here, actually. All right. So can somebody from the audience is asking, can you place the excess money in your reserve fund? I guess that could be a general question, John. I guess you're saying you can move money around, right? As long as you make a notation.
As long as you allocate it in your budget, you have a legitimate common purpose for it. Yeah, there's no restrictions that I'm aware of. Of course, you could have a weird clause in your own bylaws, but if it's a common expense, you should be able to move it from account. It's accounting. You just have to account for it. You have to have a reason why you're doing it.
Does the board members and managers, do you get more compliments or you get more complaints at the end of the day? Tyler, what do you think the audience is going to answer on this one?
I could really go either way. I mean, I'd say probably the complaint aspect, because most social events and communities don't really have a huge turnout. But
So in this case, for our audience today, 60-40 is pretty much almost 50-50. They tend to get more compliments. You know, I'm not surprised also because remember, our audience puts a lot of effort into doing a good job. So they probably already researched on how to put the proper social event together because our audience is educated. And here we go, kinds of events. So the way I'm going to throw an event out there, and I'm going to go very quickly to each panel member, and you're going to give me your comment about it. You either like it, you don't like it, you have a concern, there's a legal issue, there's an insurance issue, they get out of control, whatever you want to add to it. And then panel, if I don't get to something, you should be writing down any kind of events I've forgotten. And audience, you should also be sending me in events also that we may not get to. So we're going to move pretty quickly, and I'm going to go in the order that I see everyone, and then back the other way. All right, Dave, movie nights. Have you done them? Like them? Don't like them?
We have them all the time, at least 2-3 times a year. On the beach, outside, for the kids. They love
Greg, insurance issues.
Not on that one. That's going to be a safe, normal event that the insurance company is going to think would be normal to a community association to have a movie night.
Tyler, movie nights.
agreed, a pretty safe one, low budget, event for children, families.
All right, John, I already know one issue because that's all I do is come up with negative issues about everything. But go ahead, let's see if you, movie nights, any concerns, John?
Yeah, the copyright.
Yep. John, is this the case where technically you're going to be in violation, most likely of a copyright law, but the chances of maybe you actually getting in trouble are pretty slim? I meant, are you comfortable commenting in that way, or?
I agree with you, actually. You're probably going to be in violation of someone's rights and probably won't hear from them. But you never know. I've had, I've seen it escalate. On the same topic, you could even, if you're piping in music, there's different music rights. There's if you look at an old record, it has, I think it's ASCAP, ASCAP. They have rights to everything.
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, you have to get permission to utilize that.
Yeah, there's been issues like if in associations in Florida where they have a movie night and there's hundreds of people at their movie night and it's a large scale event. There's associations have been gone after. I meant, if you're showing Aladdin, Disney may not like it if you got,
That's correct.
300 people in the audience, and then you're charging for it. So I guess you just want to leave it at that, John. Can we leave it there? But technically,
we'll leave it there. But yeah, if it's a big event, you might want to not do it for that reason.
Okay. Holiday, and I'm using the word holiday on purpose, and I don't want to spend like an hour on this because we've also talked about this. I'll start with John and go the other way around. John, why am I mentioning holiday party? Why is that possibly an issue?
Because so under what's called the Business Judgement Rule, New York courts, they're not going to look at what boards do in general. They're not even going to look at it, even if you bring a lawsuit. But there's the exception to that is discrimination. So if you're treating some holidays different than other people's holidays, that might open that up.
This is a tricky one, right, Tyler? For managers and boards constantly, right?
Of course, yes. And I think on top of even just that aspect, many holiday parties, people want alcohol, things like that, and which brings in a whole other slew of issues, potential issues, I guess.
All right, let's jump ahead a little bit then. I was going to go over some of the legalities, but Greg, why don't you talk a little bit about alcohol?
That's what I was going to mention as soon as you said holiday party is alcohol. So most insurance policies will have a host liquor liability coverage, which basically means, you're having a board meeting and there's a bottle of wine there and no one's charging for it and it's being consumed, that if something were to happen, you will be defended by your insurance policy. The extreme opposite of that is you're holding a holiday party and you've got a bar set up and you're charging $5 a beer. You now then need to have a liquor license, need to have liquor liability insurance because you're now in the business of selling liquor. So those are the two extremes. You want to make sure when you're holding any type of an event that you're falling under the host liquor liability part. And then the second thing we'll start talking about as we talk about more of these different types of events, depending on what you're doing and not doing, we're going to go through some more examples, is whether your master policy could cover that type of event you're having or not, and that there's special event policies you can purchase to make sure that that event is covered, and also keep any claim coming from that event off of your master policy loss runs onto a special event policy. But I'm probably jumping ahead on you there.
You're jumping ahead. That's why I'm going event to the whole panel. So you can
Yes.
tell us if there's an insurance issue with each.
I want to talk about axe throwing.
Axe throwing. Yeah, I didn't have that one down actually. So maybe write that down and bring that up. So it's on the list when I ask you guys. John, just to wrap up holiday parties. I mean, obviously, you may not want to call something a Christmas party, even though it's around Christmas, right? I mean, you want to talk about that a little bit, John? But even that sometimes doesn't cover you, right?
Yeah, I mean, because Christmas is, it's kind of a generic term, but it's for Christians. Not everyone's a Christian. So, winter holiday seasonal might be a better way to use it. Yeah, and holiday parties, Greg's point is a really good one. Like once you involve, and I didn't even bring it up with the movie nights, but like once there's liquor, there's lots of risks and liabilities. There's something called the dram shop. They call them dram shop laws, but they impose liability on if you're the one letting someone drink on your premises.
All right. Dave, will you be willing to dress up in a costume for one of our next panel things if it's around Halloween?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll have to make a note of that, audience. But Dave, what do you think of Halloween costume parties? That is one that showed up on my list.
I think they're pretty fine. Again, as long as everything that we've already talked about with regards to the, the liquor issue, I don't see any issues with them.
Okay.
We don't have them in my community, but.
All right, and just so we know liquor is a problem, so I could just slide right through you guys. Do you like it? You don't like it? Or there's an insurance issue, not an insurance issue. All right, Greg, any insurance issues with Halloween costume parties you can think of?
Well, one, I'd like to see how it's a normal thing for a community association. I think to have a Halloween party and the insurance company's not going to think anything of it, that you're outside the normal scope. But food poisoning is one that could come in from the candy being given out. There's trips and falls and hazards and smoke and strobe lights, and you are, anytime you're doing one of these events, opening yourself up to a little bit more exposure. I think they're good. I think they're what a community is about, and you should do them. But there's definitely some more exposure for a lawsuit.
All right, is food poisoning covered, Greg? That was one of my slides.
For association, they bought the candy. They're now dragged into a suit because a kid got poisoned by the candy. Yes, I believe they'd be defended on that. They're not a manufacturer of the product. They didn't make it. I could see the insurance policy responding.
That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Yep.
Tyler, when you hear Halloween costume parties from a manager perspective, anything come to mind? They're just fun, right?
Basically, just having some guidelines put in place and no one has any indecent costumes, things like that, especially if there's going to be children present. So, things like that.
All right. So Tyler mentioned indecent costumes. I meant, John, I meant legalities involved with Halloween costume parties. Does anything jump to mind, I guess, besides but that's kind of tricky, right? Like, you're gonna have to be careful what you say, because what's indecent and what's decent? I mean, does this I don't know. Do we even want to discuss it, John?
Yeah, I mean, I never even thought about it, but I guess you could have it like a really offensive costume, and you could, someone could, say you're treating my class different. Yeah.
I mean, everything can be ruined in this industry. I mean, Tyler just thought of like, yeah, somebody could be not clothed properly. And now I just realized maybe somebody wears a very offensive kind of uniform, right? That offends another part of the community, right? It's just outright, could be interpreted as racist, right, John? Would a board have to intervene in that case?
Well, the board isn't, as long as the board isn't condoning it, they have no, it's not their, they have no stake in it. I've yet to hear of an issue with the Halloween costume, so I'm gonna say don't worry about it.
We're ruining everything. We're just ruining the fun for everyone.
Don't worry about it.
All right. I'm just going to go to Greg on this. Competitions, Greg, like you spoke about it a little bit, but I wanted to mention it. So you're going to have a party, and it's going to involve set up a bowling alley, right? Or a 3-man race or whatever.
You got to watch the way your insurance policies are written. I mean, there is what is normally assumed. John talks about like the regular business rules, et cetera, of what an association would normally be doing. And, you're having a movie night, and they're going to look at that as normal. You're going to have a tackle football event or axe throwing. These are items you got to get into where there could be a sports exclusion. There may be exclusions. They're going to be hunting for an exclusion. Someone gets injured in an axe throwing event. That's where you want to look at your special event policies for that sporting event, for the axe throwing, for the race, whatever that competition might be, and talk to your insurance agent and make sure there's no holes in the insurance coverage.
What is that called, John? Because I know I worry about that when I book events. It's called physical something where it's not covered by insurance, right? If it's a particular kind of an event, right? Like sports related, right? Like if I have a softball game for the association, I need special insurance for that, right?
Special events.
Special events. Okay.
Special events coverage. Yeah.
I'm blanking on that term. I know what you mean.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. I know there's a term for it.
Generic term. Yeah, I'm blanking on that.
Okay. If you think about it, let me know. Dave, can you find any possible problem with Valentine's Day? Can we please just get to Valentine's Day parties and tell me that there's not a problem? Oh no.
Nobody has a Valentine's Day party.
What?
No, nobody has a Valentine's Day party. That's not even like a real holiday.
That's not true. I know associations that have Valentine's Day parties.
Really?
Absolutely. Maybe your association's not that romantic.
No.
I can't. There's a lot of other associations, they're very romantic associations and they have Valentine's Day parties.
Yeah. Well, my wife's birthday is on Valentine's Day, so I'm partying every Valentine's Day, not for Valentine's Day.
All right. Before I go to Greg, Tyler, have you ever heard of a Valentine's Day party?
I mean, I've heard of them. I've never actually seen one hosted.
All right. Greg, you raised your hand immediately, like you had some kind of issue.
I went right to food poisoning again on that one, but I've never seen an association have a Valentine's Day party. I don't think I've seen that one.
Okay. John, any legal issues with Valentine's Day?
No, it's the same as any other party, although I've never heard of a party. If you're going to have liquor, you better get a good agreement, good insurance, special events coverage.
Oh no, the audience has come up with an issue. What happens if I give one of the association employees a Valentine's Day card? Could it be misconstrued as harassment? John.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I don't know.
I guess Valentine's Day is a problem.
It depends on the circumstances. Who knows? I need more facts there.
Generally, if you do something once, you're going to be okay and then told no and stop. But if that's something where you're after them all the time, you're definitely going to get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
We ruined Valentine's Day. All right. Potluck and dessert. I meant food poisoning. Anyone else in the panel have anything else to add to that? Okay. Greg, I forgot. So do you need special insurance for that or you don't? Because people do it, right?
For which? For potluck and dessert?
Tyler, a lot of associations have events where bring food, right? Like potluck, things like that, right?
Yeah.
They're pretty popular, or they call them recipe events too, right, Tyler? Or a lot of different names.
There's a lot of different terms for it, yeah.
Greg,
I'd
if
say
there
the
is
only thing to be
food-
careful about on my end would be if they have stations where they set up like the little fire things to keep things warm, just to make sure you're very careful with things like that and reheating stuff. You know,
It would depend on size and attendance, but that is something I would look at, because if you're having a large potluck and dessert party, that is where, again, a food poisoning type claim could come into it, and you'd be better off having the special event policy than not having it.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What if these events are being held, like what's the difference with liability in terms of food poisoning if these events are being held in individuals' homes, but they're association events? Does that qualify as a party
Go ahead,
of the,
Greg.
having the party, as the person that's hosting is liable, or go ahead.
Greg, that's like a whole new topic, but go ahead, try
Yeah.
to get through it, because wasn't even
Just a
gonna bring this up.
little,
Making the assumption these events were on common ground property. We're gonna run out of time, but go ahead, Greg.
just a little bit of it on insurance. It's similar to like the alcohol we were talking about. If you're not selling your food and you just make food and share it with someone and you get them sick, your personal homeowner's policy, your unit owner's policy is most likely going to defend you in those types of instances. So even the board didn't make the food for the big potluck, that homeowner who ends up getting sued because they got sick because of their meatloaf, their insurance should kick in.
All right, Greg, and now people are asking about allergies. What happens if there's an allergic reaction? Is the association going to be covered? You didn't state, you have that it has nuts in it.
Same thing where there should be defense for the board. They may not have made the food, or maybe they were the ones that ordered the food and didn't disclaim it, but that could end up being even a D&O claim for how it was handled and who ordered it. And obviously a bodily injury claim for the person that got injured because of it, yes. And the same thing if it happens in someone's home, your homeowner's policy is going to jump in because you ended up getting someone sick.
And
Okay.
I am going to poll the audience. And the thing is, since we're talking about social events, has one of your parties gotten way out of control? Way out of control. So we'll see how exciting, and if some of our associations are party associations, like party colleges, some are and some aren't, and how many are not. See how crazy some of the residents are. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. All right, so Dave, how do you think the audience answered?
I'm gonna say no, not out of control.
Okay, Tyler?
I think the same. Not too many out of control.
John?
Yeah, I'd probably frequent.
Out of control? More out of control than under control?
No, I'd say there's frequent complaints about them being out of control. Whether they really are out of control, I think less.
Yeah, I think this definitely depends on your perspective on what you would consider out of control. All right, Greg, all you need to do to win a gift card for Cynthia C is tell me which way the audience voted.
I think they're leaning towards never.
Well, 20% said that their association parties have gotten way out of control, but by far 80% said never. And I've already got a comment in that involves clothes in a pool, and then another comment in that also includes clothes. So I guess the removal of clothing seems to be something that everyone seems to consider out of control. So there you have it. All right. Dave, you seem like you're not surprised by that. I guess you would have guessed that.
No, I'm not sure I would classify that as out of control, but that's
All right. All right.
so
So
it's all
before,
my perspective.
I knew it was going to involve something with clothes. I just knew it. There was no doubt in my mind. All right. Tyler, poker nights and bingo nights are popular. Can you guess what issue John is going to tell us there possibly could be?
Oh yeah, money and gambling licenses.
You agree, right? That they're popular events, right, Tyler?
Yeah, as long as you're not using any physical money, things like that, or have other types of rewards for it, I guess.
Greg, I think you had wanted to say something, right?
No, I was saying there's usually alcohol.
Right. So John, poker night involves gambling. Bingo night. Some of these require gambling licenses from towns, correct?
Yes, it depends what your town is. You have to look up your town code. Yeah, definitely. If it's alcohol, that's a no-no. And if it involves money, it's even worse. So
Okay. Dave, what is the most you've ever lost on a single hand?
I'm not a gambler.
You're not a gambler? Okay. All right. Karaoke party. All right, John, just do this one real quick. There's one issue, I guess, right? Theoretically.
copyright.
Yeah.
I mean,
copyright.
the copyright it's less of an issue, but we talked about it before. If you're using music, you have the music royalty rights from ASCAP also, ASCAP.
And then the same thing with poker night and bingo nights, John. It's kind of like, technically you're violating the law, but would you agree that most towns are not looking to enforce?
They have bigger fish to fry, yeah.
Yeah, but technically. Talent night. Dave, I'm just going to go to you on this. Do you have any talent? If we had a talent show, a live stream, would you be able to come on board with a talent?
Yeah, but I'm not good at anything. Like, I can do things, but I'm not really good at them. I wouldn't want it.
So the answer is no, basically. Okay. Because that makes no sense, because then I could say I could do juggling and I'm bad at it. So then
I could play guitar. I could play guitar, but I'm not good at it. So I wouldn't want to play in public because I'm not really that good at it. But I could do it.
Okay, real quick. Does anyone on the panel have a talent if we had a talent contest? Okay, no one wants to share.
Don?
Somebody does, but okay, nobody wants to.
No.
Bring your favorite object. It's a fun party. I don't think there's anything to discuss with that, but okay. And then pool parties. Insurance, right? Could we just real quick on that one, Greg? I meant, do you need special insurance if you're gonna have a party at your pool?
Yes, you should probably get a special event policy if you're gonna have a lot of people coming to this pool party. Yes.
All right, Tyler, are there any parties that you're familiar with that I didn't mention and we didn't ruin for everyone on our live stream so far?
You guys got through a fair amount of parties. I mean, I'd say maybe a lot of events include like yard sales, things like that as well, that are a different side. A lot of communities have community yard sales and garage sales, things like that. So there
Tyler,
are other events.
what is the key to a successful social event if you had to wrap it up in a minute and a half?
The communication, making sure you're not breaking any laws, making sure you're insured, making sure you're covered legally, but also just giving everybody ample notice and making sure everyone has a fair chance to attend.
And I noticed that you said communication because that comes up a lot in our industry, right?
Absolutely.
And I would assume that could be the biggest part of it. All right, really quick, I'm not going to go through these limits. Is it fair for everyone to pay even if they did not attend the social event? This seems to be an issue of debate for people. I don't want to go to the Halloween party. Why should association funds be used to pay for it if I don't want to go? So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And then Dave, how do you think the audience answered on this one?
I think they will say no, but you just showed us the results.
Yeah, it was 50-50. Well, it's an hour show, Dave. So, if you can't.
That's so fast. I'm sorry.
So 50-50. All right. Limits on unacceptable behavior. John, board has a right to put a limit on that, correct? They can intervene if they need to.
Yes.
How to promote. Tyler already touched base about that. Good communication skills. John, can people not in good standings be not allowed to attend an association party if you're late behind in your dues?
If your association declaration or bylaws provides for that.
Okay.
So,
Greg,
yes.
very quickly, Greg, hiring outside services, you want to check for their insurance?
You want to get their insurance because that's a great idea, and then you're transferring the risk to that vendor that's coming in, but you want to make sure that vendor has the right insurance.
I think the COVID thing is over at this point, right? I mean, that anybody has to worry about it, right, John? For the most part, there's no more COVID restrictions, correct?
Well, I don't think it's over, but yeah, the emergency rules are pretty much done for condos and HOAs.
So basically, Dave, no one's ever going to invite us to any of these parties because we basically,
Not anymore.
like, we're not invited, anybody on this panel, obviously, to any party because we basically ruined it. Dave, closing thoughts.
Closing thoughts. Parties are great.
Yeah.
No, I think, communication, like what was said, and participation. We always, again, I'm putting my board hat on. We always try to have so many events, and we just, oftentimes everybody's gung ho to attend parties, but the participation is, at least in my experience, isn't always that great, and you spend a lot of effort, and it just doesn't. It sometimes isn't as much. You don't get as much out of it as you hope.
All right. Tyler already went with your closing thoughts, which were excellent. Thank you. Greg, very quickly, insurance, you need it, right? Check it out.
Yes, I mean, you should have these events. They're part of the community. They're excellent, but make sure you review them with your insurance agent. Transfer the risk to a vendor, to a special events policy, the best way you can. So if something happens, it's not as big a problem.
John, I feel like we ruined the fun today, but in reality, most of these things don't turn into lawsuits. Would you, even if they're kind of in the wrong, can you wrap us?
Yeah, I mean, if they're minor events, it's probably not going to present an issue. But I think Greg's point is probably the most important one. Like, get special events coverage if you're going to have, especially if you're going to have liquor, because that could be a big problem.
Otherwise, audience, just try to enjoy your parties. Don't worry. So everything will be fine. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank our panel. Tyler, it was great having you here. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope to see everybody next week. Should be a good one. So bye, everybody. Thanks.